So, the banjo was created by Africans, I'm told, and used by their descendants within the Caribbean and North America. And joining us this morning to discuss the history of this musical instrument is educator and instrument maker, Jeffrey Menzies. Hey, Jeffrey, how are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you this morning?
I am great. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's talk a little bit about the history, first of all. African?
Yes.
What specific part? What specific part? Or
Well,
all
it
across
comes
the
from
continent?
all across the continent. There's documents of a lot of instruments being referred to of West Africa, Senegal, the Gambia, Ghana, and a lot of these instruments are still very much played today and haven't changed since.
All right, so we know if it's African, it must have some kind of meaning. Was it used specifically in certain ceremonies, rituals? Did the banjo have a specific function or role in the communities?
Well, the banjo evolved very gradually from Africa as it traveled through the transatlantic into plantations throughout the Caribbean and definitely here in Jamaica. And then as the diaspora happened and slaves started to be imported to parts of the southern United States, it evolved further. So it's constantly changing, and it's still changing very much today.
Yeah.
It's very much a symbol of out of many one people, and it's unfortunately a lot of that has been, I won't say forgotten, but a lot of cultures have a tendency to look forward and not back.
And not
I
back.
really believe you're right, and I really believe that in order to move forward, you need to embrace your roots, where you come from.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Well, part of embracing that evolution, a little bit of the history, is just how it's made and what's the composition. You know, when we talk about the drums, some of them you have to have a particular type of skin on the drums. So walk me through the banjo. If the enslaved people, had it as a symbol of their expression, what was it like in those days, and now what's the evolution been like?
Well, I mean, as you can imagine, life on plantations was hard. It was very dark, and a lot of slaves weren't allowed to play music,
Right.
and a lot of slaves were already musicians in their homes in various parts of Africa. And so what happened was, because slaves, well, let's talk about here in Jamaica, came from various parts of Africa.
Yes.
And there's a lot of diversity, of course, throughout Africa. It's definitely not a country; it's very much a continent. What happens on the plantations, different cultures were forced to live together in very small confines. And so musicians were forced to compromise and to use materials that they weren't necessarily used to in their new environments, and obviously very dark environments. And so they had to kind of adapt and evolve a new type of instrument based on their immediate surroundings. And that's where the banza came from. And you have an example of the banza there in the showroom there.
Yeah.
Which is a very small instrument. And that instrument...
Is it the smallest one? It's this one right here.
It is small. We don't know much about it. There are no examples of the banza, physical artifacts of the banza here in Jamaica. There's a Haitian artifact that's in a museum in Europe right now. But the only document we have of that instrument, which has been referred to as the strum, was discovered by Sir Hans Sloane from the 17th century.
Yeah.
And he documented it through illustrations. And what I do is I kind of use these early documentations to recreate. Right. I don't say I make reproductions, but I make representations.
Yes.
My interest isn't in producing reproductions. It's more about recreating based on different, really embracing the Creole in Caribbean culture and the banjo.
So we're looking at different sizes, Jeffrey. So tell me, does the size make the difference in the sound? The type of string? What makes the difference? Some of them look different to me.
Yeah, there is some math involved.
Yeah.
There's acoustics, the length of the string, the longer the string, The lower the tone, the shorter the string, the higher the tone. The easiest way to think about that is think of a bass, which is a very long instrument,
Right.
has a very low tone, and a violin or ukulele has a very high pitch. And so, I work because I make most of my instruments for musicians and museums worldwide. And normally the person who's commissioned me to make the instrument will have a predetermined notion
Of
of
what
what
they
they
want it
need
to
from the
sound like.
instrument. Right. But
I'm
it's
lit-
all over the map.
Yeah, I'm literally looking at this and it looks like what are they made of? Because some look like you made them out of, like you just took a coconut, ate it, and then made a banjo.
Yeah, I mean, for the examples you have there, there's a calabash, a gourd, which is different than a calabash. A gourd is grown on a vine on the ground, and I also grow those here. I also use coconut wood, not necessarily coconuts, but I use a lot of coconut wood recently, which is a beautiful material, and I look forward to exploring that more in my work.
Yeah.
I mean, here in Jamaica, we're blessed. We are absolutely blessed with material, and it's like working in a gold mine,
Yeah.
So, very fortunate.
I'm looking. Some have a circular hole. The smaller one that we spoke about,
Right.
which might just be a matter of design. But is this where the air comes through the? I'm trying to figure out why does it have a? Why do they have holes? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a sound hole or sound port.
Okay.
It'd be like our mouth, the orifice of our mouth.
Yeah.
If we close our mouth, we can't produce much sound, and so it allows the vibration to release from the body of the instrument. So the whole is. I mean, there are certain determinations regarding how it changes the sound, but it's very minor. Mostly it's aesthetic, but it does have, it increases the volume of the instrument and the tonal spectrum.
Wow. This is so interesting to me. Are people interested in the banjo these days? Are people saying, listen, I want to learn to play? Yeah, no?
Well, it depends where we're talking. Yes, worldwide, the banjo is it's extremely popular. Here in Jamaica, I'm gonna say it's becoming, a lost art form. Of course, we're all familiar with the mento, the banjo played in mento music and at night funerals. But that's mostly from older generations. I can't say really youth these days are picking it up, and looking to learn the instrument. And maybe that's part of my, the troublemaker in me is trying to kind of rebirth the instrument here in Jamaica and not reintroduce, because it's always been here, but to familiarize, musicians I've worked with the Institute of Jamaica, and they have a few pieces of mine in their permanent collection. And so there are certainly academics here that are fully aware, but I don't think the general population of Jamaica is really aware that this instrument is partly home to Jamaica.
No, I think we've heard about the banjo, we've seen the banjo, but I don't think, in a large part we recognize and acknowledge its importance to our history. You have your instruments also in permanent collections at the Musical Instrument Museum in Phoenix. What if collectors are watching and they say, listen, Jeffrey, I need a banjo. Are they expensive? Are they accessible?
They are very accessible. I have a studio on Windward Road, and you're more than welcome to contact me on Menzies Instruments on Instagram to communicate. Every instrument has a different time frame as to how long it takes to create, and so it depends on who I'm making it for and what the context is and what's involved. But education of this instrument is very important to me as well, and I have intentions of working towards building a community school where I'm able to share this knowledge that I've been privileged to obtain over the years through my travels, and to share it with my people here in Jamaica. So
yeah, I really am intrigued, Jeffrey, because as you know, there are some instruments that are directly tied to a lot of our celebratory practices in Jamaica, or spiritual practices in Jamaica, and so I'm keen now to find out how the banjo played its part in just our journey as Jamaican people. It was awesome talking to you.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Educator and instrument maker, Jeffrey Menzies. Who knew? The banjo. Did our craft vendors get left behind by not benefiting from tourist arrivals? We discuss that after the break.